Hello, I'm back with another story snippet. This is part 2 of my story of how I studied law. In part 1, I told you how I was able to pick up law and make my commerce degree a combined commerce law degree, and a little bit about how I had to convert or have materials read onto tape. One thing that they did still put into Braille was my exams, and I remember the university had recently got a Braille embosser. And I can't remember which exam it was, whether it was an introductory business law exam or whether it was a law exam. I think it may have been a first year law exam. They had decided that they would emboss the exam in Braille, which is fantastic. Anyway, I got into my room. I still had my own exam room and my own invigilator because at that point I used to still do my answers in Braille. And my supervisor gave me the paper and I picked it up and I read the top line and I thought, oh, that's funny. I can't read it. Turned it upside down. Thought maybe they put the staple in the wrong corner. Read it again. Thought, no, I still can't read it. Read a few lines down. None of it made sense. It was all absolute gibberish. So eventually, after sweating and panicking for a minute or two, I put my hand up and said, excuse me, I can't read my paper. And she said, read me the first line. So I did. And she said, perhaps you got it upside down, dear. And I thought, right, yes, we've been through this, but I will humour her. So I turned it around. Now read me the first line. So I read her the first line and she says, oh, no, that doesn't make sense, does it? I think they must have put the embosser onto Spanish or something. I don't know. But it was complete gibberish. It was all my nightmares come true. So she had to read me the exam questions and I had to do my best to answer them in Braille, which was really tough because these law exam questions have a lot of facts and you have to keep going back and checking the facts. I had to keep saying to her, can you go back and read this bit again, and can you read this bit again, and whatnot. So that was interesting. Anyway, thankfully I passed the exam. So that was good. Anyway, the technology was starting to advance and scanners had become better and more accurate. So the National Library had a scanner. So we'd go in and we'd take the law textbooks and we'd scan them. And I would plug, there was no downloading anything from the scanner at that stage. It would just read the material to me. So Dad would be scanning the pages and I would have a tape recorder plugged into the earphone jack of the scanner and I would record the scanner reading onto tape. So we'd sit there for a couple of hours and scan books as the machine read them onto tape for me, and I'd kind of go home and then listen to this computerized voice reading my books. If there were any footnotes, we had to cover them with post-it notes because the scanner back then didn't like going from regular font to italic font and it wouldn't read the footnotes properly. Going back to my comments in my last video on library books, that's why I think people who highlight and write in library books should be shot, because if you highlight text in the old days with the old scanners, it wouldn't scan at all. Also, if you underlined them in pencil or something, or wrote notes in the margin, that would just completely stuff up the whole process, and I wouldn't be able to read the library books. So that was an interesting little challenge. But finally, I was able to buy my own scanner called the Reading Edge. So I nicknamed him Reg, and Reg weighed about 8 kilos and was about the size of a small office photocopier, really, or perhaps a, yeah, it was about the size of one of those multifunction printers that you can print and fax and do all those things. It was about the size of that. So I used to spend my holidays scanning all my textbooks for the last few years of my degree.